Southern California, with its vast coastline and sun-drenched beaches, has long been a place of dreams and idyllic escape. But for some, in the turbulent years spanning from 1963 to 1970, these serene shores became scenes of profound mystery and tragedy. Over this period, 4 separate sets of attacks occurred, leading to 8 individuals losing their lives. These cases, involving young people enjoying coastal tranquility, have lingered for decades, sparking discussions about a possible serial perpetrator and persistent theories connecting them to one of America's most enigmatic figures, the Zodiac Killer. Our story begins on June 4th, 1963. A seemingly ordinary senior ditch day for high school sweethearts Robert Domingos, age 18, and Linda Edwards, 17. Rather than attending school, they sought out a secluded beach near Gaviota State Park, just east of Santa Barbara, to enjoy the sun. They were on the cusp of graduation and planned to marry that November. Tragically, those plans would never come to fruition. When the pair didn't return home, Robert's father discovered his car near the beach, and a search of the area revealed a devastating sight. Robert and Linda had been brutally attacked close by, their bodies found in a crumbling shack. Investigators determined that the assailant used a .22 caliber weapon, striking Robert 11 times and Linda 8. It appeared the perpetrator had attempted to restrain them, as pre-cut lengths of rope were found at the scene. It's believed that when the couple resisted and tried to flee up a nearby creek bed, the assailant shot them in the back, then reloaded and delivered more shots at close range. Disturbingly, the perpetrator also tried, though unsuccessfully, to set the shack containing their bodies ablaze. There was no indication of sexual assault, though Linda's bathing suit top had been cut. An unsettling detail emerged from local youths. In the days preceding this event, an unseen sniper had fired upon 2 separate groups of teenagers along the same beach line, with a .22 caliber weapon suspected. Years later, in 1972, the Santa Barbara County Sheriff Department publicly announced a possible connection to the infamous Zodiac Killer. This was based on compelling similarities: the use of Winchester .22 caliber Super X ammunition, the same type utilized by the Zodiac in later confirmed attacks. Furthermore, the modus operandi of approaching a young couple and attempting to bind them with pre-cut ropes bore a striking resemblance to the Zodiac's later assault at Lake Berryessa in Northern California. Just months after the Domingos Edwards tragedy, another young couple met a similar fate, hundreds of miles to the south. On February 5, 1964, newlyweds Johnny Swindle, age 20, and Joyce Swindle, 19, were enjoying an evening stroll along Ocean Beach in San Diego, part of their honeymoon. Their lives were abruptly ended when a sniper, positioned about 50 feet away on an elevated bluff overlooking a concrete patio, fired upon them. The assailant then descended from the bluff, approaching the gravely wounded couple to deliver final shots to each of their heads. This was a brazen act, occurring around 8:15 at night in a fairly busy area, yet no one managed to get a clear view of the individual responsible. Johnny was found collapsed over his wife, suggesting he may have been trying to shield her. San Diego police detectives immediately recognized unsettling parallels to the Domingos Edwards case. Both events involved young couples, and the perpetrators used a .22 caliber weapon. While ballistics later showed the specific rifles weren't identical, the commonality of the .22 caliber long ammunition was noted, echoing the type used in later Zodiac attacks. In fact, San Diego Police Chief O.J. Reed communicated with Northern California detectives, requesting a comparison of cartridge cases, highlighting the early awareness of a potential connection between these Southern California events and the unfolding mysteries up north. Some experts today suggest that the way the perpetrator shot from a distance, then approached to deliver close-range shots, is a distinct fingerprint of the Zodiac. Years later, on February 21st, 1970, another quiet beach in Santa Barbara became a scene of horror, just 25 miles east of where Domingos and Edwards had perished. John Hood, a 24-year-old decorated Vietnam veteran, and his fiancée, Sandra Garcia, 20, planned a peaceful night on East Beach under a full moon. Instead, they were savagely attacked by a knife-wielding assailant. An investigator described Sandra's condition as mutilated almost beyond recognition, and John sustained 11 stab wounds to his face and back. Initial investigations yielded few leads. A knife was found nearby, but was later determined not to be the implement used in the attack. Robbery was ruled out as possessions were left behind, and there was no evidence of sexual interference. A detail consistent with the Domingos Edwards case and the Zodiac's confirmed actions. Rumors briefly circulated about the involvement of the Manson family, given the brutal nature of the event, but no concrete links ever surfaced. The similarities to both the Domingos Edwards attack and the Zodiac's Lake Berryessa assault were noted by investigators. Just a few months after the Hood Garcia attack, on the night of July 4th, 3 older teenage boys were brutally assaulted while sleeping in their sleeping bags on a beach near the University of California at Santa Barbara. 2 of the boys, Tommy Dolan and Homer Shadwick, lost their lives, while the third, Thomas Hayes, was severely wounded, requiring brain surgery. The perpetrator used a knife and a hatchet in this violent onslaught. This location was only a few miles from the previous Hood Garcia attack. The survivor eventually spoke with investigators, suggesting a trio of men might be responsible, though this lead ultimately did not yield results. The hatchet believed to be used in the attack was reportedly in investigators' possession as of 2004, with requests for further DNA testing. Across all 4 of these Southern California beach attacks, Domingos Edwards, Swindle, Hood Garcia, and Dolan Shadwick Hayes, there's a disheartening scarcity of direct evidence. The perpetrator seemed to strike quickly, with many of the victims likely unaware of the impending danger. Beyond immediate violence, there was minimal interaction, suggesting few opportunities for physical evidence like DNA to be left behind. Investigators were left with tenuous connections, which become even more complex when noting the variety of instruments employed, from a gun in the early cases to a knife in the Hood Garcia event and a knife and hatchet in the final attack. Furthermore, there's a notable time gap between the first 2 cases in 1963 to 1964 and the latter 2 in 1970. The proximity in time and location between the Hood Garcia and Dolan Shadwick Hayes attacks is striking, as is a similar method of operation between the Domingos Edwards and Swindle cases, despite the 2 being some 250 miles apart. While the possibility of all 4 cases being linked remains heavily speculative, the distinct possibility of some connections persists. The potential connection to the Zodiac killer remains one of the most compelling aspects of these unresolved events. The Zodiac himself famously claimed in his letters to have many more victims than officially attributed, explicitly stating somewhere from Southern California. While most investigators at the time dismissed these broader claims, detectives in the Domingos Edwards case, as noted, believe the Zodiac involvement to be a distinct possibility. The use of pre-cut bindings and the targeting of young couples near water certainly align with elements seen in confirmed Zodiac events like Lake Berryessa. The choice of Winchester .22 caliber Super X ammunition in the Domingos Edwards case, which the Zodiac explicitly referenced in a letter, further fueled this theory. However, not all experts agree. Some argue that the extreme cruelty and overkill present in the beach attacks, particularly the Hood Garcia event, differ from the Zodiac's more detached, cowardly, and almost clinical approach. The Zodiac, for instance, was known to have left male survivors in some of his confirmed attacks and appeared less comfortable with close-range violence. Furthermore, the geography of the Domingos Edwards beach was described as more remote than some of the Zodiac's known Northern California crime scenes. There's also the intriguing, though unproven, theory that the mysterious youth known as Sandy, linked to a separate fatal incident just before Domingos Edwards, could be the actual beach perpetrator, with some even speculating about a potential connection to Joseph James D'Angelo, later identified as a Golden State Killer, who would have been 17 at the time and in the region. Let us delve into the intriguing question of what similarities connect the chilling Zodiac killer case to the series of attacks that terrorized Southern California's beaches during the 1960s and early 1970s. As a narrator of these grim histories, I could present a compelling web of commonalities that have led investigators and experts to ponder a potential link, even if definitive proof remains elusive. Here are the key threads that weave these cases together. Targeting of young couples in secluded areas, a recurring pattern in the Southern California beach attacks, particularly the 1963 murders of Robert Domingos and Linda Edwards near Gaviota State Park, and the 1964 killings of Johnny and Joyce Swindle in Ocean Beach, involved young couples in isolated or coastal settings. This directly mirrors the Zodiac killer's confirmed modus operandi, as seen in his attacks on David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen at Lake Herman Road, and Michael Mageau and Darlene Farron at Blue Rock Springs. The Lake Berryessa attack, where Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard were targeted by Zodiac while relaxing by the lake, also falls squarely within this pattern. Specific weaponry and ammunition. The murder weapon in both the Domingos Edwards and Swindle cases was a .22 caliber firearm. Crucially, the killer in the Domingos Edwards case used Winchester .22 caliber Super X ammunition. The Zodiac killer himself explicitly mentioned using the same type of ammunition in one of his letters and used a .22 caliber pistol in his confirmed Lake Herman Road murders. Some sources also note that a .22 Remington Arms Model 550 to 1 rifle was used in both the Ocean Beach and Lake Herman Road murders, though ballistics did not definitively match between the two specific cartridge cases. Pre-cut ropes and attempted bindings. At the scene of the Domingos Edwards murders, pre-cut lengths of rope were discovered, suggesting an attempt to restrain the victims. This particular detail bears a striking resemblance to the Zodiac killer's assault at Lake Berryessa, where he used pre-cut lengths of plastic clothesline to bind Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard. Attempted arson at crime scene. Following the killings of Robert Domingos and Linda, decades have passed, but the shadows cast by these Southern California beach attacks endure. Despite the passage of time, the questions surrounding a potential serial perpetrator and the enduring theories of a Zodiac connection continue to fascinate and haunt. For the families of Robert Domingos, Linda Edwards, Johnny and Joy Swindle, John Hood, Sandra Garcia, Tommy Dolan, and Homer Shadwick, these cases remain open wounds, with the hope that time, technology, or new information might finally shed light on these unresolved chapters and bring a measure of peace.